somehow I managed to get everything ready. And I also had to get everything ready for like meet your teacher. Like that deep sigh just says it all. It was a lot. I'm lucky that I had some really great teachers on that team. They were really helpful to me, and that was great. So I stayed in kindergarten for 2 years, and I did not like teaching kindergarten. I thought I was gonna love it based on my field experience. Didn't love it. Partially because at that school we did not have full-time parapros. Normally in kindergarten you have a parapro with you the entire day to help you, because 5-year-olds don't understand your routine typically right away, how to line up, where to go, like how to find the bathroom and come back, like so many things you need an extra set of hands for. We had to share parapros the 2 years I was in kindergarten. And of course, after I left kindergarten, they have full-time parapros. Like, I'm happy for them, but I'm still sad for me about that. But at the end of my second year of kindergarten, I'm like, oh, this is not my grade. So there were going to be second grade positions open, and I really, like, second grade was exactly where I wanted to be. I did have like a brief field experience in second grade, and it was my favorite, and I loved it. I really loved like the curriculum of second grade. I liked like the student attitudes and behaviors second grade, or so I thought. No, second grade was actually, those are my favorite years. So we had a new principal. I actually went through 3 principals for the 7 years I worked at that school. So we had a new principal. I think he'd been my principal for 1 year, my last year in kindergarten, and I like pretty much begged him to let me go to second grade, gave him all my reasons why, promised I would learn the curriculum, all of that. I would send him little emails like, hey, you know what's gonna happen yet? And eventually he caved, and he's like, all right, you're going to second grade, don't make me regret it. I'm like, yes. So I went to second grade. I taught second grade for, was it 4 years? I think 4 years total. So I had 2 years in kindergarten, and then maybe it was like 3 years in second grade, 3.5, because I did a combo class, which I'll talk about. Then in first grade, then I ended my teaching career in second grade at a different school. But went to second grade, absolutely loved it. I saw my principal at the end of the day. I'm like, this is like being at Disney World. I said line up, they did it. Like, it was so nice. And I really enjoyed teaching second grade. Something I haven't mentioned yet, but I will get to, is student behaviors in my own classes. I talked about some student behaviors in my long-term sub job, but not in my personal life yet. But pretty much every year, except for 1 year, I have had students who had challenging behaviors, like really challenging behaviors. Students who were throwing chairs, students who were ripping up stuff from the walls, students who would steal, students who would bite. Like, I'm talking what I would call extreme behaviors. For the most part, I always had an extreme behavior in my class. And I suppose I handled it well. I learned a lot about how to, like, we had some like district professional learning about behaviors. And then I would do like further research, and like I had what I called, I think 1 year I called it a safe spot, 1 year I called it the calm corner, where you had a timer, you had like, you could color, you could build, you could smush stuff. Like, basically it was just a moment to go and get yourself together, right? Like, if work was frustrating or overwhelming, or if you were having a bad day, like whatever you needed, you couldn't stay in there all day. You go, you flip the timer. Sometimes I would give people, like, if they really need it, you would get extra time, and that was fine. But all that, I'm just trying to say, I really tried to foster students who were struggling with various behaviors and help, and that really wore me down. And because I was actually pretty good at it, I always ended up with those students in my class because they're like, oh, give them to her. She does a great job. She has XYZ. She has this. She can do it. And that really will wear you down doing that year after year, because when there's just one or two, it's challenging enough with one or two because you have to stop and redirect so often, or you can try to ignore certain behaviors as well. Like, it just depends on what it is. There's different techniques, but it's hard for students to concentrate when people are throwing chairs in the back or screaming or crying or whatever they're doing. Like, that's not fair to other students who are trying to like learn. So that really wore on me. But the year I knew that this probably wasn't sustainable forever for me was the year of COVID. And when I tell people that, a lot of people think it's because of COVID, and it's actually not, because I felt this way before COVID was ever mentioned. But I'd been in second grade, loving it. We had a new principal that year, and I really liked her, and she wanted to implement some new stuff. So that next year, she wanted to try out 2 combo classes. So there was going to be a kindergarten, first grade combination class, and then I was going to do a first grade, second grade combination class. And the purpose was that it was supposed to be first graders who were going to be on, near, or above the same level as some second graders, and that they could get some more advanced stuff and all that kind of magical stuff that sounds good on paper, but in reality, report cards in our like state, they're like based on the state, the standards. The standards are based on your state, at least in my state. And so the standards are different for every grade level. So even though it was told to me like, oh, you'll be able to combine all these things and all that, that wasn't the case. I just had to teach first grade standards and second grade standards, because on each, depending on what grade that child was in, on their report card, that was the standards tied to their name. So I had to do double the lesson planning. I had to do double the teaching. It was just absolutely wild. And those first graders I worked with that year were probably the smartest children I've ever worked with in my life. And the second graders were not at the same place. And not only that, the first graders, very high intelligence, but social, emotional, not quite there. I had a kid who would scream they wanted their mom almost every day and cry. And I tried soothing, I tried ignoring, I tried so many things, and you just had to let him be. And he would hold a teddy bear and like cry and scream. Like something you imagine like a 3-year-old, like a tantrum. And we learned to tune that student out, let them do their thing. But can you imagine trying to teach children through screaming and crying? And sometimes I'm sending them to another classroom didn't help. The counselor was not much help. I mean, I guess there's only so much you can do. Talk to their parents, helped for a minute, reverted right back to it. It was just a lot of that. It was a lot of crying, a lot of tantrums, not a lot of teaching going on. And funny enough, I was nominated for Teacher of the Year that year. I did not win, which is totally fine. But I was just like, I felt like my world was falling apart in that classroom, and people came in to observe me because I was supposed to be this like nominated Teacher of the Year, and I got such great feedback about all the things I was doing in my classroom, but on the inside I was falling apart. Like, how am I going to survive more years of this? And then COVID happened, school shut down in March. I needed that so bad. Obviously I did not want COVID to happen, did not wish COVID happened, but it gave me a relief for sure, because my mental health at that point was really not in a good place. Not in a good place at all. So I was grateful for a while. I felt really bad for everybody who was sick, and I felt really bad for students who needed to come to school, but it was something for me that was a relief, and that was a sign, right? Like, I shouldn't feel this good that I don't have to go. I mean, we were still meeting online with classes, and that was great. I actually loved it. And we could listen, we could focus, those who showed up. Not everybody showed up, which was part of the problem. But the next school year, and I will blame some of this on COVID, but can't blame it all on it, but the next school year is the school year that wrecked me. I was asked to teach first grade, so I'd been kindergarten, then second grade, did the first second grade combo, and then I was asked to go to first grade. I did not want to go at all, but they wanted, I don't know what they wanted. I don't know why they wanted me to go. Something about the team dynamics in first grade and in second grade. The team had been the same for a bit. They just wanted to kind of shake things up. A few people moved, a few people left, so the teams were different. First grade was horrible. I don't like the curriculum. It's so rigorous. Like, it's just, first grade was rough for me. And the students that I got, one in particular, before COVID, and so this student would have been in kindergarten before COVID happened. I could already see there were issues. Everybody in first grade, they were already worried, like, who's going to get this student, because we knew that teacher that had that student had a really rough year, and I was a lucky winner. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can to help this child have a good experience at school, and I did, and I tried so hard. But that year I had so many, like, I think there were 2 to 5 kids who did not have any type of behavior issue. It was just so tough going to work. I did not want to go, and I felt like I could not do my job, and I kept asking for help. I had to call for help every day because of certain students, mostly one, but there were 2 that I had to call for. And my team helped me as much as they could. I mean, my assistant principal had to have a little desk and wait outside my door every day. And to me, like, isn't that a sign that this isn't the right environment for that student? Because no one's learning in here with the chaos. And I remember, because you like get observed as a teacher, and I remember going to the principal's office after, because like you do some check-ins like after you get observed sometimes, and they were like, you just don't seem like yourself this year. And I'm like, you don't say, because like last year, remember, nominated for teacher of the year, this year completely falling apart. And I'm like, yeah, but I've told you about XYZ. I've been documenting this behavior. I had like over 200 instances of behaviors in a week. Like, I needed help and I wasn't getting it, and I was falling apart. And part of me wanted to not be a teacher anymore at that point. But another part of me thought, you know what, I've had a rough year every year at this school except for one. There was only 1 year where it wasn't like really, really tough for me. And so I thought, you know what, this 45-minute to an hour drive I'm taking every day probably is also not helping, because that's time away from my family, time away for me to chill, time away for me to do something I want to do. And traffic in general is frustrating. So I was like, well, maybe if I just change schools, that will fix stuff. And so that's what I did. I went to a job fair for the district I actually live in, and there were 3 schools that I was talking to and that I really liked. And I guess they really liked me because we kept talking. And then there was one point I just realized the school I really wanted to be at And luckily they decided they really wanted me to work there too. And it was in a second grade role. And I was so happy. This school was like less than 10 minutes from my house. It was a much bigger school though. The school that I worked at for 7 years, each team would have like 4 to 5 teachers on it. And this school, I was on a team of 9, like including me. There were 9 teachers. So the dynamic was different, but everyone was so welcoming and I felt like really good about it. But I noticed, and the school, actually I had a different school day. The times were different. So I got out earlier. So I'm like, yeah, awesome. I'm gonna get home before 5 these days. And a lot of times I ended up staying till 5 to try to get stuff done anyway. And I did have behaviors. They were not as extreme. I did have 2 kids with very similar names, find that funny, who had like tantrum, like kind of, I call them like tantrum like attitudes, I guess. Crying, fake crying sometimes, being very upset for very little reason, or at least they're probably really upset about something deeper, but you know, like, please write this word down, cry, like, you know, it was a lot. The counselors were very supportive of that school and I appreciated that. I didn't have to call for an administrator ever, so that was nice. It wasn't as extreme, like physical or aggression type of behaviors, so I was grateful for that, but it was just like all of a sudden nobody knew how to be a student anymore and you couldn't get through a lesson without kids talking. And by now I had like 8 years, so I had, at least I felt like I had classroom management down pretty good. I'd had really, like, even with some more challenging classes, it had been better than this with these not big of challenges, but I think this had a lot to do with missing that prime time of school because of COVID. And some of those students had been online the year before and hadn't been back in the school setting. So it was like a hard transition. But I think it was by December of my last year of teaching, like at the new school, where I was like, this just isn't it for me and I've got to do something. And in that moment, over that like midwinter break in December, I started doing stuff that changed my life. And I'll tell you about that next time. Thanks for walking with me today.